All right, time to go over some homework. Let's do Algebra 2, Section 2, Day 2 homework. How about if I just name it this way? 2.2 Day 2 homework. And then we're going to go over 2.2 Day 3 homework, which means that you should understand that it's not even due yet. It's due at midnight today. So if you watch the video, then you would get those points. Okay, identify the axis of symmetry for the graph of each function. So the first thing I need to do is I need to remember my formula. Formula is negative b over 2a. This is my b right here. And it's the negative of that, which makes it positive 6 over 2 times 1. There's nothing here, so that's automatically a 1. So that's going to be 6 over 2 times 1, which just gives me 3. So x equals 3 is my axis of symmetry. Same thing here, negative b, that's the positive 16, over 2 times negative 8. That's negative 16. 16 over negative 16 is negative 1. Number 3, now it changes its format. This is in vertex form. So if I'm looking for my axis of symmetry, it is just the opposite of this. That's going to give me an axis of symmetry of negative 7. For each function, determine whether the graph opens upward or downward. Find the axis of symmetry. Find the vertex and find the y-intercept, then graph the function. So first, does this open upward or downward? Only way to tell that is look at this. If it's positive, it opens upward. It's negative, it opens downward. This is clearly a negative, so this is going downward. Axis of symmetry, negative b over 2a. That gives me negative 6 over 2 times negative 1. That's negative 6 over negative 2, which is a positive 3. Now to find my vertex, oh, bless me. To find my vertex, I then plug this 3 in to my formula. Now it's negative, then 3 squared plus 6 times 3 plus 1. 3 squared is 9, so it's negative 9 plus 18 plus 1, which is 10. So my vertex is at 3, 10. Then it says the y-intercept, that's always going to be this number. So if I just plug a 0 in, 0 squared is 0 plus 6 times 0, so that's y equals 1. To graph this function, I'm going to start with my vertex, or I can start with my y-intercept. Either one is fine. Vertex is over 3 and up 10. Makes it nearly impossible to graph because I don't have that on here. If I go up 10, it's opening downward, and my y-intercept is 1. Now, since this is my axis of symmetry, to get to 1, I would have to go left 3. So to find my other point, just another point to graph this, I would go over 3 to 6. And that's what my parabola is going to look like. All right, on to the next one. Negative 2x squared plus 4x minus 2. It's a negative out in front, so that's going to be downward again. Axis of symmetry, negative b, that's negative 4 over 2a, that's 2 times negative 2. So I have negative 4 divided by negative 4, that's a positive 1. Take that positive 1, plug it in. That gives me 1 squared is 1 times negative 2 is negative 2 plus 4 times 1. So I have negative 2 plus 4, that's 2, minus 2 gives me 0. So my vertex is at 1, 0. My y-intercept is at -2. Now, if it's going downward and my vertex is at 1, 0, then my y-intercept should always be less than 0. If it's going upward and my vertex is at 1, 0, then my y-intercept should be above 0. If you get it the other way around, you know it's wrong. Go over to 1, 0. Make my first point. Y-intercept's at -2. That's here. So I went over 1 to the left and down 2 to get to my y-intercept. Find my other side and go right 1 and down 2. And that's the graph of my parabola. Find the minimum or maximum value of each function, then state the domain and range of the function. So for this one, in order to find out whether it's a minimum or a maximum, I look at it, this is a 1 here, it's positive, so that means it is going upwards, so I'm finding a minimum. To find my minimum, I just find the vertex. So I first find my axis of symmetry. Negative b over 2a. That's negative of a -8, so it's positive 8 over 2 times 1. That gives me 4 for my x-coordinate of my vertex. Plug that in to find my y-coordinate of the vertex. 4 squared is 16. And that's minus 8 times 4 plus 1. So 16 minus 32, that's -16, plus 1 is -15. So when it asks for my min is just the y-coordinate of that, -15. State the domain and range of the function. The domain is all real numbers. To find the range, I take the minimum, which is -15, and it goes to infinity. Or I could say range y is greater than or equal to -15. Number 7, negative b over 2a. That's -25 over 2 times 5. -5 is -10. This is going to give me positive 5/2, or 2.5. Is it a max or a min? This is a negative. That makes this a max. If I plug 5/2 in here, it gives me -5 times 5/2 squared plus 25 times 5/2 minus 3. All right, time to do some fraction work here. 5/2 squared means I square the top and square the bottom. So it's -5 times 25 over 4. I can multiply that out, gives me -125 over 4 plus 125 over 2 minus 3. Have to get a common denominator. So that's going to make this -125 over 4 plus 250 over 4, multiplying both the top and bottom by 2. Now I have to get the 3 to have a denominator of 4 as well, which means I multiply the bottom by 4. Even though there is no bottom, that's 3 over 1. 1 times 4 gives me 4, so 3 times 4 is 12. -125 plus 250, that's 125. 125 minus 12 is 113 over 4. So this is a max at 113 over 4. State the domain and range of the function. The domain is all real numbers again. The range is y is less than or equal to 113 over 4. Record label uses the following function to model the sales of a new release. The number of albums sold is a function of time.
Mr. Martsoff, please dial extension 4002. Mr.
The number of albums sold is a function of time t in days. On which day were the most albums sold? What is the max number of albums sold on that day? So basically all I have to do is I have to realize that this is plus 0, negative b, that's negative 810 over 2a, which would be negative 18. That gives me 45. So that's the day that the most albums were sold. T equals 45. Because that's my vertex, and that's a max. Now to find how many is actually sold on that day, I do negative t times 40, negative 9 times 45 squared plus 810 times 45. So 45 squared times negative 9 gives me negative 18,225 plus 810 times 45, which is 18,225. That doesn't make any sense at all. I'm coming up with zero albums sold. Yeah, that makes no sense. Let's try this again. T is 45. I do 810 times 45. Sorry, that's better. My answer, total answer, is 18,225. So on day 45, they sell 18,225. That was my bad. I forgot that I already put the two halves together. All right, let's move on to the next assignment. This is 2.2 day 3 homework. Once again, guess what? That's today's homework. Due today at midnight, which means that I'm giving you 8 hours to complete, 10 and a half hours to complete an assignment that all you have to do is watch this video. That should help. Axis to symmetry here is 4. It's just the opposite of this number. This one would be 2, negative 6, negative 1. Done. Tell whether each statement is true or false. I'll fill that in for you. The graph of a quadratic function is always a parabola. True. The graphs of all quadratic functions open upward. False. Remember, if it's a negative out in front, it opens downward. The graph of f of x equals x squared has a maximum value at 0, 0. That is also false. It's just x squared, so the min is 0, 0. For the following functions, determine whether the graph opens upward or downward. Find the AOS, the vertex, and the y-intercept. Then graph each function. Determine if the function has a min or a max, and find the value of the min or max. Wow, got a lot going on here. So first thing I have to do is determine whether it opens up or downwards. This one is upward. I know that because this is a positive 3. In order to find my axis of symmetry, it's negative b over 2a. That's negative 2 over 2 times 3, which is 6. That gives me negative 1/3 for my AOS. Part C, find the vertex. That means I plug a negative 1/3 in. So this gives me 3 times negative 1/3 squared plus 2 times 1/3, which is 2/3, plus 1. Negative 1/3 squared gives me positive 1/9. So it's 3 times 1/9 plus 2/3 plus 1. 3 times 1/9 gives me 1/3. 1/3 plus 2/3, that's 3/3, or 1 whole plus 1 is 2. So my vertex is negative 1/3, 2. Part D, find the intercept. It's just this number here, which is 1. I have a problem in here somewhere. Oh, this should be a negative. Now, important lesson there. You know how I knew I had a problem? I knew I had a problem because my y-intercept is 1, which is less than my vertex. And I said this open upward, so it should be at the point 1/3, 2, or negative 1/3, 2, starting here and going upward. So if I found a y-intercept of 1, that's clearly an issue. It came down to the fact that this should have been a negative 2/3. So this is 1/3 minus 2/3 plus 1. 1/3 minus 2/3, that's negative 1/3 plus 1 gives me 2/3. So I'm going to be, for my y, is just 2/3, not 2. Now with my y-intercept of 1, and this at negative 1/3, 2/3, it is going upwards. Make my next point next to it and go upwards. And I'm done. It's a little bit of a mistake with that one. Then determine if it has a min or a max. It's a min because the bottom number is the vertex and it's going upwards. Find the value of the min or the max. The value of the min is the vertex, which is, it's the y value of the vertex, which is just 2/3. Number 9. First, this opens downward. Then my AOS is negative b, which would be a positive 4 over 2a, negative 2 times 2. So it's positive 4 over negative 4, which is negative 1. Part C is the vertex. Do negative 2 times negative 1 squared minus 4 times negative 1 minus 2. Negative 1 squared is positive 1. Negative 2 times positive 1 is negative 2. Negative 4 times negative 1 is 4. And then minus 2. This gives me a vertex of negative 1, 0. My y-intercept is negative 2. Now I can graph this. There's my y-intercept. My vertex is negative 1, 0. I had to go to get from my y-intercept to the vertex. I went up 2 and over 1. So to get to the other side, I go over 1 more and down 2. Because they have to be on the same on both sides. This would be a maximum. And the value of the max is 0. It's just the y-coordinate of the vertex. All right, that's it for assignments 2 and 3.